Hello everyone, this is Arafel, and last time I mentioned that I would be going into the engine of the game that I was planning to do a full playthrough of. This is a little something I made in that engine as kind of a tech demo. To basically, the idea is I was trying to make a function that would do automatic text box sizing for you. So you see it showing itself off on this sign. In any case, the engine is called Verge. I first encountered it back in, I think, high school, maybe junior high. Verge stands for, as I recall, Vecna's Extraordinary Role-Playing Game Engine. As the name suggests, it's designed for making role-playing games in the style of like a Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest kind of thing. And, yeah, here we go. We're going through our text here. Notice that the text box is automatically sizing itself to the width of the text, and there's also a parameter in the function call that has its height on the screen. That's done as a percentage, I believe. Anyway, Verge has its own coding language called Verge, which you should be able to see it here. This is loosely based on C. It has similar syntax. So you have the parentheses on your function calls, brackets around things, semicolons on the ends of lines, this font style. And then individual maps each have their own code, so start is what happens when you load the map. This is pretty simple. It just spawns your player at 1010 coordinates and sets that to who you're controlling. The signs each have their own function, which are just calling the text box. With 0 is the default font at the beginning there, then the text and the last number is the height on the screen as a percent. I'll just finish this out here. Now this is using a different font, so as it's saying, the measurements go by the font you're using, so it works on pretty much any font. This one I kind of faked some spacing in there. What this does is that the text box is set up to do up to 3 lines of text, and I just have the first and third lines as spaces. Yeah, I did this in a little bit of experimentation. Here we have some Japanese text, but it's kind of cheating. Basically, I made a specialized font that has those specific Japanese characters in place of numbers. Yeah, in case you can't read Japanese, this says Eigo ga wakaranai, which means I don't understand English. And yeah, like I said, there's no real international language support here. Cheap trick with a custom font. In any case, that was a text box demo. The tile set here is loosely based on Final Fantasy V. I redrew everything except maybe the bridges. I kind of like how the water and the mountains in particular turned out. Some of the other stuff, not as much, but yeah. And after this, the game is going to close itself and pop up a message box, and I'm not sure how my recording software is going to handle that, because it's recording the window, so if the window's not there, well, we'll see. Yeah, I had forgotten I had this, but came across it when I went back through some of my Verge stuff. If you've been watching my Atari series, you may recall Creepy Caverns. It was a little indie game created in Atari Basic by, I think he was 14 at the time. And it was published in the magazine that I can't remember the name of right now. It's the full Atari Basic source code. You could type it in and play it on your own Atari. And at some point I took the code, analyzed it, and converted it into Verge C, at least mostly. There's some parts I didn't quite get to, like the big lump itself at the end. But, yeah, the full random generation is working, the monster AI is working. I even have a little thing in the timing loop so that things speed up when there are fewer monsters, to emulate the slowdown on the actual hardware when there are the monsters to handle. As is the way of such things, I added in some extra features. There's a little pause screen there. Actually, I think you might be able to pause the original. I can't recall. There's some cheat codes. Have a good old God have God mode you can turn on for testing purposes, of course. God mode, have a jump sheet, a map sheet. Map sheet will show you a map of the entire layout of the dungeon. I'm kind of proud of this part. It shows the actual colors of the rooms. It shows how many treasures and monsters are in each, not necessarily the locations, because those are randomly set each time you get in. So the jump key does let you, if I remember the keys, not there, Alt. It lets you jump from room to room. There's the key. Shift Alt. So if I switch over to the key, go under the chest, there's my sword. Yeah, and this is what I have instead of the Megalomp itself. It's, yeah, placeholder, obviously. I think I might have an off by one error in either the size of the rooms or when the screen transition is. But in any case, this is a mostly functional Verge C port of Creepy Caverns, which I do not currently have this on my website because I had forgotten about it, but I will be posting that with my other stuff there. I'll have a link into the description to what is posted there, which includes the little Textbox demo I showed earlier, as well as a few other things. And yeah, this has been Arif showing off a little bit of Verge. I think next time I will go through the demo game that came with the engine, just to demonstrate what kinds of things you could do with the engine, what they were expecting you to do with it, as a lead into pretty much the only game that was ever actually completed in Verge. So I hope to see you then.